Thank you all so much for joining us before this afternoon's performance of PIAF DIETRICH. So I am Rachel Peake, and I'm so happy to be introducing you to Mary Ancheta. Mary Ancheta is a music director, composer, producer, and musician. You can find her music on HBO, National Geographic, Netflix, and more. Notable performances include playing keys for Carly Rae Jepsen at the Juno Awards Gala, opening for John Mayer, performing with Jill Barber, and performing for director Michael Moore in New York City for Grammy Week. In 2025, Mary's jazz group toured Australia, and she was invited to be the ambassador of Canada to perform at the 2025 World Expo in Osaka, Japan. This summer, her band will be opening for the Headhunters at the Montreal Jazz Festival. This is Mary's debut at the Grand Theatre. So when I selected PIAF DIETRICH to be part of the season, I know Mary from Vancouver. She's based in Vancouver, and she's done some work at the Arts Club Theatre Company, which is where I was before I came here. And so when I selected this, I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we could get Mary Ancheta? But she's a rock star, and she'll be way too busy. But let's ask, and then we can move on to whoever else. But then she was available, so here she is. Even rock stars have gaps in their schedule. So to begin, Mary, can you please share a little bit about your career so far? Let's start by talking about your life as a musician.
Sure. Thanks so much, Rachel. It's a real mixed bag. I'm so happy to be here in London at the Grand doing this show. I'm originally from Hamilton, Ontario. I grew up there, not too far, some Hamiltonians. I grew up there. I went to McMaster, and I started learning the organ, and I think just learning to compose. I was playing in a band at the age of 14 in local venues around town, and from there I eventually moved out west and just started to do some different things. I was composing for some film and television, as well as working with other artists, producing their music, and also performing with, anywhere from a hip hop group to a rock group. So,
how much of an average year do you say you spend touring?
It used to be a lot more. I mean, I used to spend maybe 3 months in Vietnam, 3 months in the Maldives doing some of these contracts. But now it's definitely less, I think. As I get older, I want to be able to do the projects that I love and that are the most meaningful to me. We went to Australia and Japan last year. I'd say maybe 4 months out of the year, and the rest of the time I'm writing. And
So talk a little bit about your transition to music directing for theater, because if I'm correct, you were involved in theater young a little bit, and then had a career primarily in the music world, and then you came to music direction as a mid-career artist. Is that correct?
That would be correct. I have a lot of friends that are actors, and my sister as well, who is here in the audience, is an actor, and she directs as well. And I just grew up always around theater. I was singing some show tunes at one point in like a cabaret type group and playing piano, and I had never actually seen a musical where I didn't know every single word. I was singing them under my breath as they were performing. So, and then eventually, as I was having different experiences in Vancouver, they were doing The Kink in My Hair. Ray Hogg was directing that, and it was supposed to be up during COVID. It ended up that the original music supervisor wasn't a wonderful music director. She wasn't able to do it at the time, and someone had recommended me. They said, I know someone that would be perfect for that show, and it feels kind of full circle, I think, to come back to theater. It's something that I've always been a part of and have loved, but haven't been 100% immersed in it, so.
That's great. And Ray Hogg, who Mary is speaking about, is known to grand audiences as the director of Newsies most recently, but he's also directed other things here. That's great. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about this show, about PIAF DIETRICH, the show that we built together. So speaking about, let's talk about the artists that the show is about. So about Edith Piaf and Marlene Dietrich. How would you sort of characterize them as musicians, as singers? Like, can you speak a little bit about their influence?
Sure. I think Edith Piaf, they talk about a real paradox, I think, with her vocal. It's a very powerful, vocal when she's singing, but as well, there's a real vulnerability to her delivery and to her lyrics, which I think is so powerful. From my impression, I feel like she's always singing from the first person. She's not necessarily, it never feels like she's singing from someone else's perspective, and I think there's also with Piaf, there's an elasticity to the time. If there's a tempo like this, maybe someone's singing perfectly in time, but where she has an elasticity to her vocals, she'll sing. If this is our tempo, maybe she'll sing do 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 do, or she'll sing on top of the beat do 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 do. She's either speeding up or rushing and slowing down, and I think, that's to me reflects life. That is life. Life is not perfect, and life is not a metronome. It speeds up and slows down, and she's singing about it all. I think the joy and the passion, and I think there's something beautiful in that for sure.
Absolutely. And then what about Marlene Dietrich?
I would say there's a bit more of a measured, sense of time, and also the range that she's singing in. She's singing in definitely a lower range. It's almost very conversational, where it feels like she's talking, singing at the same time. It's just a very different delivery, still very heartfelt, but maybe slightly more calculated, perhaps, than Piaf. So
that's great. Something that we talked a lot about in the rehearsal hall was who these icons are. Like that these are not impersonations. This is a theatricalization of them. So bringing that in. But for example, in the case of Marlene Dietrich, Tara C. McLeod has this big, beautiful voice, and so moments where we really wanted her to kind of hold back in the Marlene conversational way, and then moments where she was allowed to sort of set loose her own natural.
Sure, it's finding that blend, I think, of the character they're playing, but also in the moment and what they do as, the artists that Tara and Deborah are, I think, as well. So,
can you speak a little bit about Piaf and Dietrich's influence on contemporary artists?
Sure. I think there are so many things from me. I think, perhaps who are the artists that might be influenced by them. I think they were very cutting edge. There's a certain androgynous, feeling to Marlene wearing suits, and ties and a top hat and coattails that I think as an artist is very freeing, outside of gender. So I would say, you have someone like Martha Wainwright, David Bowie, Janelle Monáe. We have Freddie Mercury, that's almost recreating for the Queen album. For those of you who don't know, Freddie Mercury is the singer from Queen, and he's on Queen 2, I believe. He's recreating this iconic photo of Marlene Dietrich for that album cover. If you look closely on the Sgt. Pepper Beatles album, supposedly they had met and performed on some bills together. They've put her on that cover. If you look to the right, she's one of the few artists that you can see in full, and you recognize her there because that was perhaps an influence. And I think that's something special that they made an effort to put her on the cover of the Sgt. Pepper album. So there's so many artists, I think, that and also being an activist, both of them just really speaking their minds and reflecting the times. I think there's a lot of influence there. Madonna, the list goes on. Elton John.
Great, thank you. So let's unpack a little bit the role of music director in the theater. Can you talk a little bit about your process, which starts, at auditions and then through to, for the choreographer and I as director, we're done opening night, but Mary's here with the show every night, and she's, one of the few creative team members who carries the show all the way through. So can you speak a little bit about the process?
Sure. So we start out the process with, first of all, I'm reading the scripts, I'm taking a look at the score, and then we look at auditions, we look at the characters, and we figure out there's only so many bars for auditions that we'll get them to do maybe a minute or two of a song. I'll pick particular songs, and then we held the audition process. We're looking at in person as well as online. And then from there, once it has been cast, it's a lot of referencing the score and the script, I think, in the early days, and just checking out if there's any discrepancies between, sometimes you have a score that says one thing, you have a script that says something else, and we have to make that decision about which is the best way to go. And then from there, when we look at the people that we've cast, these amazing talents that we've cast, I'm looking at what is the range of their vocals. So the last time the show was done was through Mervish, and I believe the songs were set for their voices because we want to make sure that those particular artists shine. So when we looked at the songs for this particular production, we ended up shifting some of the keys to really, match the passion of these two artists and to really showcase their talents as well. So
that's great. And then in addition to the rehearsals with the actors, Mary's holding rehearsals with the band members. She's selecting the band and then marrying the two together. For those who don't know, this show was originally written in German by an Austrian and a German, and it's had many runs in Europe. And then pre-pandemic, it was translated and adapted by Canadian playwright Aaron Shields, and done at the Sagal Centre in Montreal, and then that got picked up by Mervish. So this English language translation has only sort of had one and a half productions, that Sagal Centre production that got moved to Mervish. So in many ways, Mary had a lot of forensic excavation to do because the score had really been written for that one show and that one team of people, and then they shared it with us, but there were all sorts of edits and changes and shifts, and we were kind of having to figure it out as we go in terms of what worked for our staging.
Yeah, exactly. Just with the personnel that we have and the instruments and the people, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So once the show is up and running, Mary is playing the keyboard but conducting at the same time. Can you talk a little bit about what that takes?
Sure, it takes a lot of strong head movements. It's one of those things where, so just to explain, beside my keyboard, there is a camera that is shown right there. I don't know if anyone can see it. Right, yeah.
On the balcony rail above your head.
So some of you can't see it, but it's right there. So there is a camera on myself so that the actors and the band can see me. So if I'm playing, basically I have a little headset microphone. So waiting for the cue, I'm waiting for the cue with the dialogue, and then I'll count 2, 3, and they're in. These musicians are so pro, and they're on it in. But then there's also the moments when I'm conducting. I can't do stuff with my hands because I still have to play. I'm the only chordal instrument, so it's a lot of head movements. I need a chiropractor. But yeah, it's a lot of head movement. So it's basically, if we're counting in 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, and it's not for every beat, but I think there's certain key moments I'm doing a head movement, and I'm also speaking. I'm also counting into the microphone so the band can stay all together. And it gets a little tricky, I think, with the elasticity of PIAF, it's not in that perfect time. But yeah, and then other times, I'll just play with my left hand, and I'm doing a bigger movement so that we can connect the actors. Maybe they're doing a little button at the end with us, a gesture, and then it all comes together that way. So
and it becomes a bit of a choreography. Like it's something they'll sometimes work out in rehearsals too, about how the breath and how these gestures
exactly.
work.
Sometimes we're coming in and I'm waiting for Tara's, and then we come in on one. I'm watching her physically and hoping I hear her breath to come into the next section. So yeah, it's special when it's really done well. It's exciting.
And just in case it's not clear, so this microphone that Mary has, the musicians all have in-ear pieces that they can hear that. So the audience doesn't hear it, but they all do. You'll see when you see the full set, but the musicians are actually seated on stage, upstage. So Mary is up on this, what is stage? Stage left, to your audience right platform. So you'll see her up there. But also because the play is set in 1945 to 1960, myself and the set and costume designer have put the band into that world. So they're costumed in that world, and we've tried to hide any of these electronic devices that didn't exist at that time. So they're also all on sheet music, whereas a lot of musicians use iPads these days, but we've made them go back in time a little bit with their technology as well. Can you talk a little bit about the patches that the keyboard has in order to round out the instruments?
Sure. So on the laptop, it's very common in theater practice these days. There's an application called MainStage. So you can use different sounds in this show. Sure, there's piano, but then, and we do have another instrument. We have violin. But then in order to just thicken up sounds and to make certain sounds sound bigger, we are able to program sounds. So maybe there's a violin, there's a group of pads, like a string pad underneath. We're in France, so there's an accordion, that comes in and out at times. There's certain sounds. There's like a glockenspiel sound that comes in and out. So I think with the use of technology, we're able to bring certain sounds in and out. And I think some shows can lean on it a lot heavier. I feel like Frozen was an exploration into a whole nother thing. But this one is subtle, but I think it's really nice to be able to access that technology and to bring in certain sounds.
And can you just talk about which live instruments we have on this show?
Sure. So we have Dave Robiliard on drums, and he's also playing timpani in the back, which is really adds for that drama. We have Céline playing violin, and we also have Eric Larson on the upright bass.
So they're a small but mighty band. Can you talk about what the challenges are of having the band on stage, other than having to wear costumes, versus in the pit? How does it work a little differently when you're fully visible?
Yeah, I think we're trying to really focus on our job, but also I'm aware when there's a scene, depending on where the scene is, just not to take away from the storyline, depending on how we're lit. I think we're just very conscious of that. And there's moments also when the curtains are closed and the actors are singing in front of this curtain. So I'm playing with them, but you can't see them, you can't see any gestures, you're just listening for the audio. And then again, the tempos aren't set in stone. The tempos they're always kind of fluctuating with the singing at times. So, I think that can be, you kind of get used to it, but that could be a challenge, I think, for sure. Or certain moments, I'm trying to time out how long to play something because I can't see the physical movement of what they're doing. So
yeah, I would love to turn it over to you if you have any questions for Mary about music direction or about specifically working on this show of the music of PIAF and DIETRICH. Yes.
When you start the audition process, is it completely open audition, or do you sometimes have in the back of your mind, I would like her to play this and her to play that? Or how many people would show up for an audition for these two leads? And what is the time frame from when you actually pick the actors to the time they perform? How much rehearsal time do you have?
Great. So lots of great questions there. So I'll just repeat it into the microphone for people who might not have heard. So the question was, do we always audition for the roles, or do we sometimes have specific people in mind? And then how much beforehand, before the show actually happens, do we hold auditions? And then how long is the rehearsal period? Do you want to take those?
Sure. Maybe we can go back and forth. I think for myself, when we were doing auditions, they are open. But then I also feel like I live in Vancouver now, so people know the local artists often, and that's something that was just outside of my wheelhouse. So I feel like the auditions are open, but you guys also have an idea of who you've seen in the past, or of some local artists as well.
Yeah. We the call for auditions is public. We usually do it through something called eDrive, which is with Canadian Actors Equity, but you don't have to be a member to receive that. I will say that we usually get way more applications than we can ever possibly see for a part, so we do have to winnow that down. We do sometimes just make direct offers if there's people that we're like, oh, this person is perfect for the role, so we will do that as well. So it's kind of a variety of those things. I can't remember exactly when we did these auditions, but it's generally about 8-10 months to a year in advance. Like, my guess is we probably did them in April last year.
I was going to say April, yeah.
Yeah. And then we started rehearsing at the end of January. So it's usually about a month of rehearsals and technical rehearsals. Yeah. Other questions?
We have one up here.
Yes.
Hi. I'm wondering if your message or your main theme was changed from the previous renditions of the play. Since it's a rather newer play, did you change the message, the theme, the main goal in your present?
Great. So the question is whether we change the main theme or the message of the play as it is. It's only like its second production of this adaptation. The answer is not really. I mean, I think the difference is that team came. Some of the people came from the Seagull Center in Montreal. The writers from Germany and Austria came, and Aaron Shields, our Canadian adapter, all came. And not having seen the previous production, they felt that the production itself feels very different because it's a different set, it's different performers. But the actual text of the play has not changed very much. I made a couple of little requests to Aaron. We did change some of the assignments of roles. We changed actually Eric Craig and Karen Birthright, who play the secondary characters in the play. We swapped which song each of them sang. And we reassigned some roles to help with the flow and to sort of fit in with the world we created here. So no, I would say that the story and the themes remain the same, but with each iteration, with each new group of artists taking it on, I think it has a very different feel, and I think we brought different things forward, and the other group had brought different things forward. So there's definitely a newness to it. At the Grand, we really love doing second runs because I think it's a big part of continuing the development of Canadian work, letting it have a second chance with a second team, and
kind of takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
I think there's, I would have loved to have seen, I think, the other iterations of it, but there is something special about just making it our own within the personnel that we have and the team that we have. So.
Yeah, and musically, the arranger was the music director last time. So Mary coming on was a real sort of fresh ear to it all. I don't know. Do you feel like you shifted much from what was written?
Musically, no. I feel like it's, other than, maybe not having the original score was for 5 instruments. We had 4 for for this one. But no, musically, I don't feel like that it was shifted that much. And then the singers, I guess, kind of bring in that other new life as well to it. So.
And it actually says on the script a minimum of 2 musicians, piano and accordion, which is they totally went away from. Another question. Yes, there in the aisle.
You know the history of the Grand Theatre?
Do I know the history of the Grand Theatre? Yes.
It's 127 years old this year.
Yes, we will be celebrating the 125th anniversary of this building later this year. You're right. Thank you for bringing that up.
No, they were found very small.
Yeah, thank you. Another question? I don't know how we're doing for time.
Hi there.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I have heard wonderful comments about the dialect when the singers are presenting in another language. I'm wondering if that was the problem when you chose someone you could sing perfectly well in French. Was
Yeah.
the language a barrier?
So the question, the comment is that they've heard that the dialect is very good and was selecting actors who could sing in another language a barrier. It's interesting because, both Deborah Hay, who plays Edith Piaf, and Tara C. McLeod, who plays Marlene Dietrich, they both speak French, English and French. Actually, it was the German language was the sort of outlier for most of us. But we had a really excellent dialect coach who worked with them on that. I mean, Edith Piaf has a very particular pronunciation of French if you listen to her music. So that was something that Deb really wanted to bring into the singing was capturing that. So I know that the school we have here is from a French immersion school. So some of that might actually jump out to your ear because it does to mine. It doesn't sound quite like contemporary French sometimes, but that is adhering to what some of what Piaf did and some of her mannerisms. And we worked with an incredible dialect coach. So we made the decision that anyone who was a French speaker would speak with a French accent, even if in the scene they probably would have been speaking French. So just in order to kind of clarify that, any German language speakers are speaking with a German accent. And then, of course, there are also English language speakers. So you'll see for the 2 people who play the supporting characters, they flip in and out of different dialects and different regional dialects of for different characters. It's really quite a feat.
Yeah, there's so many characters that they're playing. It's great.
And it came into the music as well. There was when Marcel Cerdan sings L'ancien air, we experimented with what is it to sing it without the accent and with the accent, and we all liked it better with. So that's the version you'll hear today.
Thank you.
We have time maybe for one last question, if there's one more burning question. Sorry? Oh. Pas de question, no? Did you have a question? Yeah. Okay.
Barry, you play every single song, and so many of us have a favorite song of Edith Piaf's or Marlene Dietrich. Do you have a favorite song?
So the question is, does Mary have a favorite song by either of these artists in the show? Let's put the constraint in the show.
Okay. There's so many that I love, but I had to think about it when I was doing my Instagram takeover. But I think it's still La Vie en Rose. I know that's the one that everyone knows. But there's something beautiful to me about that literal translation, life in pink, the idea of wearing rose-colored glasses. And I think about seeing the world and all of its beauty. And for me, that's the song that leaves me with hope and optimism and the things that I want to feel and to bring to the world. So, yeah.
That's a beautiful way to end. Please join me in thanking Mary Ancheta for being our guest today.
Thank you.